Hi everyone, welcome back for another edition of Movies That Move We. As you can see,
Hi.
the Zen is back. And today we're going to be talking about a classic. This was done as a mini-series. Don't ask me what network did it because I don't remember. But Women of Brewster Place. This is based on Gloria Naylor's debut novel by the same name, by the same title. And this is kind of, it's from the title, yes, it's about women, but it's about women who have gone through some stuff, survived some stuff, and supported each other as they were heading to whatever their individual goals were. So she's seen it a million times. Don't judge me. I've only seen it one time, but I did read the book recently. So, all right, let's get into it. What did you think overall about the story? What was it about to you?
I just feel like it was a lot of the characters, they went through hardships, especially kind of like I feel like on the backhand of like their issues with men, if that makes sense. And they kind of all had to they all kind of all built this community where they all had to kind of like come together and rely on each other to get through these struggles that they kind of dealt with throughout the film. They all handle things differently, but that's pretty much what I feel like the whole premise of the story is about.
Well, but that's kind of what I want to get to. It's not just at the hands of individual men, but rules set up in a patriarchal society. So it starts off with Oprah Winfrey's character, Mattie, where there's very specific rules about courtship. This was like back in, I guess, the 40s, 50s. Yeah, yes, early on, because they were still, her family was still sharecropping.
Okay.
So, excuse me, her father had selected the young man that he thought was good enough for his daughter. And by good enough, it meant he was a Christian man. He had ambitions and potential to do more to get out of the sharecropping world in the South. Okay? It didn't matter that whether they were in love or if his daughter was in love with the man he selected for her. It was all about, this is a good match. It'll elevate your station, and he's thinking he's doing the best for his daughter. Now, any of you who have had kids, who've raised teenagers, y'all know when you tell your kid what to do, your kid does the exact opposite. She's finding this out with the little one. But anyway, and that's pretty much what happened in Mattie's situation. She got caught up and what's the word that they use? Oh, she got in trouble. And that's how they used to say it back in the day when you turned up pregnant but you weren't married.
Got in trouble.
Got in trouble. And so she got pregnant. Dad thought it was with his choice and said, all right, we're going to go straighten this out. Y'all got to get married right away. And she couldn't lie to her dad. She said it's not his. And he almost beat the brakes off his daughter. And here's where women supporting women, protecting women comes in the very first time you see it. Mattie's mother wasn't pleased with the situation, but her attitude was, look, the sin was you bumping uglies, before you had a ring on your finger. God's forgiven that. Now there's something great coming out of it. So we're going to focus on that and everything's going to be fine. And then when Mattie's father started beating on her to find out who is this guy that got you pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
Mom came out with the shotgun and said, "You will not beat my child." I mean, I've done everything else you wanted me to do according to cultural norms. This is where I draw the line. Mattie couldn't stay where she was, and so she headed to the city, unnamed city where Brewster Place was. And she found work, and she took care of her son. She loved her son.
A little too much, but she did love her son.
And there was an incident where her son got hurt in the first place where she was living, the boarding house she was living, and she packed up without a plan and started looking for somewhere else to live. And she ended up, what was the lady's name that took her in?
Oh, I forget. Was it Miss? It wasn't Miss Hattie, was it?
Was it? I think it might have been. I'm sitting here looking down the list.
I feel like, was it?
Miss Sophie?
Miss Sophie, that's Sophie. What it was.
Okay. So she ended up living with this lady, black woman, who, in the book, she looked like she was white. She had her own property. And Mattie went there, was supposed to be paying her to live there, and she wouldn't take her money. She let her live there. She cooked for her, and it was a new mother-daughter type relationship. Okay. And, oh gosh, I forgot her name that quick. Miss Sophie had a granddaughter. And this is, again, where you start to see the pattern of women who have been handed a bag of responsibility. And again, society says, well, if you're a single woman with children, well, you're ruined. We can't do anything with you. Or, you know what, you are the matriarch of the family, so here, take care of this. And her story was, she had a son who had a girlfriend. I don't remember if they were married, if they were husband and wife, but I
think they were.
Her son and daughter-in-law had a child, left the child with grandma, and she didn't know where they went to. They never came back for her, for their daughter. And so here it is, grandma is raising her grandchild. So in this household, you have Mattie, you have Sophie, you have Seal, who is Sophie's granddaughter, and then you have, what was the son's name again?
It was something weird too.
It wasn't anything weird. It was a simple name. It wasn't anything complicated. But anyway, her son, they grew up together. They grew up pretty much like brother and sister. And Basil.
Basil.
And so they grew up as brother and sister. And once Miss Sophia passed away, Mattie took care of Seal.
Yeah, and she took over her house.
Miss Sophia left her the house. So she took over the house. Basil got in trouble. She put the house up as a bond for her son, got him out, and he took off with the car, and she never heard from him again. So once again, you see where the men are kind of leaving these women.
And honestly, that all happened because, and you'll see it in the film, it's like, from a young age, Miss Sophia yelled at her because she was always letting him sleep in the bed. She was always coddling him. So it became a thing where even as he got older, you kind of saw,
Mommy will always save me.
She'll save me. And if she doesn't, like, what? How could you just leave me in jail to rot, Mom? How could you not cook me dinner? How could you not do this? Yeah, like, so it's just like you see a lot of that from when he was a kid to adulthood. And again, it also kind of made me think of, like, even the relationship that she had with his father. Because it was like, oh, so he inherited a lot of these genes from
Well, no, it made me think of her relationship with her father. Because she felt like her father, I don't want to use abandoned, but didn't love her. Her mom showed her the kind of love she needed when she found out that she was pregnant. Her father was always rules, rules, rules. You have to date this person. You got to marry that person. You shamed me because you went and got with that low-life, peasy-headed boy that I can't stand. All of those things, it was never, she didn't read it as love. It was restriction. And so she didn't want to do that to her son.
That's true, yeah.
And so that's really what at the root of all of the coddling and fixing and everything. She didn't want her son to feel like she felt when she was younger. And Miss Sophia pointed it out. And maybe that's a lesson that Miss Sophia learned with her son, because he did up and leave her with his child.
Also, I think like Miss Sophia was also kind of pushing for Oprah's character to like find male companionship. And I kind of wonder like what might have happened had she had done that, because it would have created like a father figure for her son, though. Like maybe he wouldn't have gone down a certain path or whatever, because also in that it's kind of like he didn't have a lot of guidance or anything like that from a male figure. You know, the only figure he had as a parent was his mom. Like, you know, he didn't know how to deal with these things right from wrong.
The grandmother from Sophia as well. So once she loses the house, she didn't really have anywhere else to go. So she left and ended up on Brewster Place. Now, the way it reads, the city was not named. It could be any town, USA, but it was a city. And the street on which she ended up moving to, first of all, she met her friend, played by Jackée Harry, or Jackée. I don't think she goes by her surname. Oh, what was her name? I hate not being as well prepared as I should be, but she met her friend, played by Jackée Harry, and Jackée is, I'll say, out there. For the time she's out there, she is sexually liberated. She ain't trying to get pinned down. She was
even called worldly in the movie.
Yes, worldly. That's worldly, because, you know, she was doing what she do. Oh my gosh, it's annoying me. I can't think of her name. Etta Mae. So she played her best friend from down south, Etta Mae, and Etta Mae was always finely dressed. She had swagger about herself, this confidence about herself, but you find out later on that she really wanted the more settled down life, but she also wanted to be elevated. So she was putting on this front of this high-powered, energetic, youthful woman that every man would desire, but that's all it was. They just desired her.
I feel like in certain interactions that she had, which I won't give it away, but it's like, I feel like in certain interactions that she had, she kind of portrays at first like, oh, well, I'm basically just worried about the opportunity. I'm worried about the money. I'm worried about the lifestyle. But as the movie kind of played out, and there was a part where I felt like she was trying to be vulnerable and share parts of her life from childhood and all of that, and try to connect with someone. And they just kind of took a look at her and was like, well, you know, you're just kind of an out there kind of woman. Like, you know, you're just down to have a good time and that's it. Like, you know, I'm not going to connect with you or be intimate with you in that way.
Yeah.
So it was kind of unfortunate to see that.
Be intimate, but That's the extent of
Well,
it.
yeah, but intimate.
Yeah.
I mean, in like a more
Long-term.
mental kind of like she was trying to be vulnerable with her feelings and emotions, whereas this individual was kind of like, I don't care about any of that.
Yeah.
And it was sad because she doesn't give off that throughout the movie. She doesn't give off like this vulnerable person. She gives off like, oh, well, this is the name of the game. This is how it goes, and I'm just gonna kind of play that game too.
That person bested her at the game.
Mm-hmm.
So she was pretty down about that. But again, in that sense, we also see where one woman supports the other.
Mm-hmm.
Now, she looks at her friend, Mattie May, as very buttoned down. I don't want to say homely. Homely's not the word I'm looking for.
It's not homely. It's more so just like she's very mundane in her life. It's like she goes to church. She goes to work. She cooks, she cleans, she takes care of her home, and that's her day.
Right.
You know, she doesn't really...
She's not out there looking. Now that her son is gone and she didn't have to take care of Seal, she's just kind of living her life. It's kind of like, what use does she have for a husband at
She kind of was acting like a widower to me. Like,
yeah.
Almost.
Yeah. You know, just let's button down and... You know, this is what my life is now, period. Is kind of how she was. And, gosh, I forgot that quick. Etta would rag on her about it. Like, okay, come on, you got to get up and get out of here. You got to find you a husband. Everybody was always on her about finding a husband. And she was like, I'm fine without one.
And that was honestly, I feel like their characters were completely opposite, but I feel like that was on purpose because there's even parts in the movie where it's like they rag on Oprah's character so much about like being this single woman, not putting herself out there, not even being vulnerable with her feelings about her son just up and abandoning her. Yeah. And it becomes a situation where she kind of lashes out too and is like, look, your ish is
yeah, like, she was like, you sitting here telling me about all these widowers and single men in the church. How come you ain't pick one of them up? You trying to push one off on me. What about you? And she's like, I ain't studying none of these men. Look, there's one there's one for you. Go check that one out. You know,
yeah, but you know, that's what I noticed. It's kind of like each woman in the film handled their thing dramatically different. And they called each other out on those differences. Like, hey, like, is this really the best move for you to be making right now?
But that also speaks to the time. It speaks to the time, and it speaks from where a lot of these women were from. A lot of these women came from the South, moved to the North, and ended up on this, what's described in the book and what you see in the movie is a pretty diverse community. But a lot of these women were direct with each other about, you know, you need to do this differently. Etta, you need to settle down. You know, Mattie, you've been single for too long. You need to find yourself a husband.
Seal, it was, you need to leave this man alone because he's playing like a fiddle.
Right. He's not the right guy for you. And the thing is, I don't think it was that he was playing her. The man had, I feel like he had anger issues.
Yeah.
And he kept losing jobs and just would make a snap decision. This is what we need to do.
Yeah, like it was giving like impulsive and like he would just kind of up and go. And
then again, social norms, religious norms said when you have a man, you stick by him no matter what. And so she wasn't going to leave her husband because he was all over the place. She was going to go along with the flow because that's what a good wife does. Okay. One of the things that is worth a look is the comparison between Mattie losing her son and then Seal losing her daughter. You know, yeah, they were different ways. One actually passed away and the other one just said, poof, I'm out in the wind, I'm gone. but how they dealt with it. I feel like Mattie she was hurt by it. She was disappointed, but she kind of buried that in and said, you know what, I still have business to take care of. I don't have a man out here. My son is gone. There goes my dreams of seeing if I have any grandkids or anything like that. And she just kind of plugged away and went on, and this is what life was. Seal, on the other hand, she got married to somebody that Mattie just didn't approve of. And again, remember, Seal is a Mattie is a mother figure to Seal.
Mm-hmm.
And she just didn't approve of this man at all. But Seal was, again, committed to the relationship. The last time her husband lost a job, they went in one room to talk about it. She left her child in the living room. Her child stuck a fork or something in the outlet, and she died. And Seal took it so hard. She was about to die herself.
Mm-hmm.
That's how hard she took it. Now, I noticed in that scene her husband wasn't around, but all the women came together.
Yeah, because at that point he left, I think, after that.
Because he had to go to Connecticut or somewhere up there to find work. But she fell apart so hard, and it was Mattie that was there to nurse her back.
And I feel like Mattie kind of like, I don't know, I feel like it forced both of them to see things a certain way. Like, I feel like it was kind of like Mattie learned a little bit about vulnerability in that moment, because it was kind of like, here it is, this woman just lost her child the same way. Well, not the same exact way, but she lost her child.
And she knew that pain.
Yeah, and she understood that pain, but she's never really dealt with it. It was kind of like after it happened, she, cried, she got a little bit upset, and then she went on with her life after that. She didn't break down in the bed. But also, I think that for Seal, it was kind of like she was trying to give her that strength of like, hey, you got to keep going, you got to move on with your life, and you have to just keep pushing, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So I think they both kind of learned from each other in that moment after the little girl passed away, like, how to handle this or how to kind of depend on one another in a moment like that.
Right. There was one thing. Okay, so the book was published in 1982.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And two characters, Lorraine and, was it Teresa?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, so Lorraine and Teresa, they showed up on Brewster Place. And what was the old lady's name? Was it Coralie?
Yeah.
No. Coralie was the young girl who had like all of those kids. But there's one old neighbor. There's that one person in the neighborhood that's always sitting in the window watching everything that's going on. And they're basically the news outlet or the tabloid, as the case may be. And so this woman sat in the window watching everything that was going on. She criticized Coralie about her 4 kids. And we're going to talk about Cora in a minute. She criticized her about her 4 kids and not keeping them kids from running around in the apartment above her. And she ain't raising them kids right and all of this other stuff. Well, when Lorraine and Teresa showed up, she zoned in on them. And she immediately started telling people, oh, have you noticed the way they are with each other? They're that way. And once she said they are that way, a lot of other women in the community started cutting them side eye, whispering about them, because that way means, for those who don't understand, they were lesbians. And so when you think about when this book was written and the time period that Brewster Place falls in, this was kind of a big deal. Being out in the open with your relationship was a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. These two women moved to this community to get away from the gaze of judgmental people. Was it Lorraine? Lorraine was the school teacher, I believe.
Yeah.
She was a school teacher on the other side of town. So nobody in that community would know she was a lesbian, and she was trying to keep her good job as a teacher. Okay, that's part of the reason why they separated work and everything else. Teresa, and the thing is, they didn't play these women as one was feminine, one was masculine. They were just two women living together and taking care of each other. But their status was called into question. And so when Lorraine started participating in the
it was like the
neighborhood association, as soon as she said, "Oh, I'll take notes," nobody else wanted to take notes before she showed up. When she came in and said, "Oh, I'll take notes," all of a sudden it became a problem. But what was her name? It wasn't Kishana.
Yeah, she was the one running the whole meeting.
She was running it, but her name wasn't Kishana. It was Kisawi or something like that. Played by Robin Givens. Yeah, Kiswana. She was the organizer. And she came in and was like, "We have to have this association because our buildings are falling apart. We don't have heat. We don't have that." And so when Lorraine came in and said, "Oh, I'll take the notes," all heads snapped around and was like, "Do we want her kind taking the notes?" Yeah. And it was like, what does the way we're wired today, we're like, well, what's the problem? Is lesbian writing different from everybody else's writing? What's the problem here? But back then, that was normal behavior to say, "Oh no, they can't be around us. You know, gay and lesbian might rub off on the rest of us." And that's really how they treated her. And oh gosh, I wish I could remember this old lady's name. I wish I could remember her name. But anyway, she got that rumor really going about them and made it difficult for them to live there. And it caused an argument between Teresa and Lorraine because, you know, Lorraine noticed all of the attention that they were drawing. And she was like, you know, "They're talking about us. They're doing this. They're doing that." And she was like, "Who's they? Who's they? Everywhere we go, there's they. Why do you care about they?"
But it's like, you know, I feel like Teresa was kind of trying to like get her in this mindset of not caring. But for her, it's like she kind of had to care because she lost multiple jobs once people found out, you know, because in that time period, being gay or lesbian or of the LGBT was not
outside of the norm.
Yeah.
And so
then she met Butch, right?
Yeah, Butch was the maintenance guy. Old guy. People kind of were like, take or leave him. He's harmless. He'll come in and bang on a pipe or something like that and fix the minor things. Other than that, he was a drunk who lived in the basement. She met Ben and they formed a friendship. And he said at one point, "You remind me of my daughter," which she didn't get. But the story was she had to leave her family, or Lorraine had to leave her family once they found out she was a lesbian. And, you know, she said that the thing that she would do is, even though her father disowned her, every birthday she would send him a card and send him a gift. He would send it back. And at a certain point, what she started doing was sending him the card, but not putting her return
address
on it. So she doesn't know if he kept the gift, if he didn't, but she was always extending the olive branch. Well, you find out that Ben's relationship with his daughter was similar. where he left or she left, but she always sent something back for him, but he didn't know where she was. So in his mind, he formed this connection with the spirit of his daughter. And when he would get down, he'd get drunk and he would start singing, what is it, Swing Low, Sweet Chariot.
I didn't pick up what song he was singing.
Yeah, he would start singing the old gospel song, and everyone in the neighborhood would be like, yeah, there goes Ben, he's drunk again. Let me bounce back to Coralie, though. So Coralie was an interesting one. She was raised with both parents, and they seemed to keep her on a good path. But every Christmas, when she was a child, she would ask her parents for the same thing, a brand new baby doll. And every year she would get a brand new baby doll. And one year her mom was like, well, why do you want, and this is coming out of the book, why do you want another doll? And she was like, because the old one doesn't smell new anymore. And so she would ask and ask and ask. And every Christmas she got one until she was 13 years old. And her father put his foot down and said, you're too old for this. No more baby dolls. That carried over into her adulthood. Well, not really her adulthood, because she had her first child when she was about 16.
Teenager, yeah.
And she had 4 different baby daddies, 4 different kids. And once they got just a little bit older where they could walk and talk and kind of do for themselves, it's like she emotionally abandoned them and she had to have another one. And it wasn't until, what is her name again? Kisana came around and said, hey, we're going to have a performance. My boyfriend is doing a Shakespeare performance in the park next week. Why don't you bring the kids? It'll be fun. I think that was the first time she didn't feel judged by anybody. This girl wasn't worried about how many kids she had. She actually saw the house was a mess. The kids were literally pulling the curtains down. And the mom was kind of like, yeah, that's what you get kind of attitude. And she was only worried about the little one she had on her lap. And I'm just going to call her Kizzy because I can't. Kizzy was like, let me help you. I'll help you get the kids together and then we can go down together. And that's kind of when she was like, oh no, I can't have anybody in here talking about me, not in my space talking about me. And she started coming out of it. Back to Lorraine. Lorraine had a run-in with Cece, which is one of the young guys that prowls the neighborhood with his gang of friends. And he knew she was a lesbian and basically said, oh, I can straighten you out. I'm paraphrasing. And she insulted him. Kizzy, again, ran to her support and said, Cece, get on, leave this woman alone. She's not bothering you. And it gave Lorraine a little bit of confidence. And she was kind of, yeah, go away. And he was like, I'll catch you when you're alone. And they did. And Cece and his friends assaulted her in the street. And they left her at the end of the street where there is a wall that separated Brewster Place from the rest of the city. The other side of town, if you will. And they left her there. Mr. Ben saw her and tried to help her, and she was so disoriented, so afraid, in so much pain that she ended up hitting him with a brick several times, and he didn't survive. Now, what becomes significant is this wall at the end of the street and what it means. And in the movie, I didn't quite get it, or I should say in the miniseries, I didn't quite get. I got what the symbol of the wall was supposed to be. I didn't get why that moment was when the wall needed to come down and I didn't realize this is a difference between the book and the series. They treated that like it actually happened
in the film.
But those of you who read the book know that that was actually the coming down of the wall. And, you know, the weather was in question about a block party they were having that same day. It didn't happen. That was a dream. So it once I read the book, it kind of left me going, well, wait.
Well, whose dream was it?
Well, it was Mattie's dream.
Okay.
It was Mattie's dream in the book, but it was kind of like, well, did the issue with Lorraine really happen? The wall isn't coming down. In the book, they were still planning for the block party. And so that was probably the only part that I was confused about. But the symbol of the wall coming down was breaking the constriction that even though these women found a sense of freedom on Brewster Place, there was still so much more to do. And breaking down that wall symbolized what their next level could potentially be. So overall, I mean, it's always the case where the book and the film doesn't always line up, and that's usually budget, time constraints, or just let's bring this out a different way. And I think this was a combination of both, bring it out a different way and yeah, we can't let this drag on forever kind of thing, because it was 3 episodes.
Yeah, and there's just certain details that they can't put in the film because they'll spend too much time.
Right, kind of like we did talking right now. But but anyway, overall, I think this is a great film. I think it still has some relevance today.
A lot.
You know, women still dealing with stuff, and you know, the need for women to support each other. You know, we saw the various ways that they did that in the film, even if it didn't quite look like support. But definitely a must-see. The book is definitely a must-read. I recommend reading the book first if you haven't seen the film. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. But anyway, that is the show for today. I will post in the Movies That Move We group the next film that we will be talking about. I'm deciding between a couple. And yeah, we'll see you next week. Don't forget to like, share, and follow. Tell your wife, tell your kids about Movies That Move We. You can find us here on Facebook. Again, Movies That Move We. Or follow us on YouTube, the Media That Moves We page and the Movies That Move We playlist. And we have about 2 years worth of stuff up there. So if you're looking for something else, another movie discussion, there's plenty to choose from. So until next week, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.